Okay, well, hopefully that streaming is working today. I'm experimenting with different options of providing free training resources in topics like conflict resolution, managing difficult conversations, etc. I've got my son home from school holidays at the moment, and it's an incredibly challenging time to try and be productive in amongst the constant barrage of interruptions and potential issues that might be going on just outside my office door. What snacks are being invaded? What mess is being created? Which household objects are being destroyed? So I've decided that one option for me would be to do these live streams and focus on professional development topics around communication. So I'm this week just experimenting with different formats, etc. So I'm going to just check and make sure I've got all my little screen options working and that kind of thing, and then we can get started. I'm aiming today to be roughly 30 minutes or so, that thereabouts. So I'm looking at a case study today dealing with an unreliable tradie. In America, I think you call them contractors, but here we call them tradies. A plumber, an electrician, a builder, a maintenance worker. It's those kind of professions. And they can be incredibly challenging when we're dealing with conflict with a tradie. There are a number of nuances, I think, working in the construction sector that mean that conflict is pretty much ubiquitous. They're constantly moving with so many moving pieces, complex work that they're doing, but also dealing with issues like suppliers or work, like staff shortages, labor shortages, all of those kind of challenges as well. So when we're dealing with conflict with an individual tradie that we've hired, we're not just dealing with them. It's kind of like all of the other factors that are influencing the way that they're perceiving the situation as well. So we might need to employ skills like de-escalation, assertiveness, empathetic listening, as well as negotiation. So I'm going to be talking today about a number of the different topics that I explore in my Essential Foundations for Managing Workplace Conflict course. Although this particular case study is a personal one that I've come across. The house that we live in, we built it about 4 years ago. And at the end of it, we had someone come and install the driveway. And within, it was probably only 2 or 3 months, there was just these sections of the driveway where the surface had worn away and it looked gross, and it was much quicker than you would have expected. Like they should have, I think, probably done more coats or applied some kind of protective layer or something similar. So I found this very stressful. I can remember losing a bit of sleep about it as we were going back and forth with the tradie in question and trying to negotiate a solution that's going to work for all of us. We did end up getting a resolution in that one, and I actually prepared a podcast episode about a year ago explaining what I actually did. But in this particular case study that we're looking at today, I've de-identified it a little bit. It's not exactly the same as the situation that I was facing, although there's certainly some overlap. And if you've dealt with challenges dealing with tradies or contractors yourself, I'm guessing that there might also be some similarities to the experiences that you had as well. So this is what I'm going to be focusing on today. I've got this idea of just providing a little quote. I really like these brief periods of reflection just to orient yourself, change your mindset, especially at the beginning of a workday. They're very helpful. So I'm looking forward to that, as well as expecting that it might be useful for other people too. I'll explain the scenario of the tradie that we're looking at, and then I'm going to go through a couple of the different practical tools, like I mentioned, from the self-paced course that I have on my website. So I really like Robert Greene's books. I've got many of them, and I really, really like this one, The Concise Laws of Human Nature. He's got a really unique way of thinking about humans and the way that we interact with each other. And in this book, he talks about like different types of narcissism, and he explores empathy in a really interesting and unique way as well, in my opinion. So this is from the section on empathy. He says, empathy is more than anything a state of mind, a different way of relating to others. The greatest danger you face in your general assumption that you really is your general assumption that you really understand people and that you can quickly judge and categorize them. The danger you face is your general assumption that you really understand people. Have you come across people like that? They think that they can explain the motivations of other people in a very simplistic way. They did that because of this. Well, I suppose Robert Greene's saying there that there's potential landmines that you're creating for yourself by assuming that you've got the full story and that you know all of the facts. When you begin to interact with them, they're not going to experience you as being open and curious and very much willing to explore the issues from their perspective. Instead, they'll probably find you as being reasonably judgmental and critical, And what we get then in a lot of cases is defensiveness and resistance as a result, isn't it? So I thought that could be something that resonates with a few people, but let me know down below in the comments if that's something that does actually strike true with you. So here's the case study that we're going to be looking at. I'll read it first, and then we can look at a few of those different practical frameworks that I mentioned. So this is the scenario. You had a driveway done by a local concreter, Jake, 4 months ago, and the surface has started to erode. In several places, the coloured surface has peeled off, and you can see bare concrete underneath. Jake is quietly spoken, but direct in communication. He advertises being a proud local Aboriginal business. He never answers his phone much, and his voicemail doesn't have a recorded message. It just beeps, so it's not exactly sure whether or not he uses it and checks the messages or not. Sort of the implication would be probably not there. You attempted to contact him by email and phone several times. He's promised to come in the past and have a look when he can, but it's been weeks of waiting. He initially had excuses. His family had COVID, weather, etc. But now he just doesn't respond. In the final email that you've sent, you threatened to take him to fair trading if he didn't respond within a week, and he didn't respond. The cost to have the driveway redone is approximately $7,000. So what do you make of this one? Does that resonate with you in any of the experiences that you've had? What do you think might be going on for Jake? What's your initial take on potentially how he's viewing the situation or what might be happening? In the moment, back then when it was all going on, it certainly felt very personal. I was thinking about how I should interact with him and why is he not getting back to me? And I was rereading the email that I sent 6 times, trying to figure out if there was a different way of interpreting or whether I'd left something ambiguous or whatever else it might be. But in hindsight, when I sit here today looking back at that situation, it was probably not much to do with me at all. It was probably the context that he was in. He might have been going through an argument with his wife, who knows? They might be going through divorce. He might have family members who are sick. He might have health issues and be sick himself. He might be going through financial challenges at the moment and he's approaching bankruptcy. Like, I've literally got no idea. In the moment, I felt like I did have the full story, but of course, when we look back, we realize just the tiny fraction of information that we actually had. And I also think that I probably overestimated the level of influence that I would have over Jake as well, like emailing him and calling him and this kind of thing. I'm the kind of person that doesn't like it when people are angry at me. But in hindsight, tradies, contractors, probably live a life where people are angry at them all the time. There's probably always a builder calling them about an issue and wanting them to come back and fix it. They're probably always getting pushed to increase the standards while still being paid the same amount. So I don't think that my communication with Jake would have been particularly unusual for him. In fact, it's probably what he deals with every day. Whereas in the moment I thought, surely this is something that he might need to deal with. Surely this is something that's a priority. We have Australian consumer law protections. So shouldn't there be a warranty on something like a $7,000 driveway? Like, I was kind of on my high horse in so many ways in hindsight. It would have probably been better to explore options in more of a considered and strategic kind of way. Drink of water there so my throat doesn't go too croaky by the end of the video today. It's always tricky doing ones early in the morning. What do you make of the options that you've got for dealing with Jake as well? Would you call him or would you email? Would you consider initiating a formal process like in New South Wales, where I live in Australia, we have something called the Department of Fair Trading. I think it's changed its name slightly recently. So there is an official government department that tries to resolve conflict like this, often in the construction sector, but they don't have a lot of power. It's really getting them together in the same room, kind of like what I do as a mediation, but I think you would probably call those kind of processes conciliation, because the person who's running the meeting, the person from the Department of Fair Trading, would often provide information about the legal responsibilities or obligations of the seller, or the legal rights or potential obligations and duties of the buyer, the customer. So for me, I think I probably would have looked at this in more of a nuanced way if I could have paused and just become a little bit more clear in the moment. So I'm probably to say that I oversimplified it, it's understating it. I really, really dramatically oversimplified what was going on here. And in fact, I think a lot of the conflict situations that we deal with are much more complex than we realize. And the way that conflict plays out is that it's this reciprocal pattern that goes on between the people that are involved, or if it's a business to business conflict between the organizations that are involved. We've got person A and they communicate in a way that matches what they would want, probably. Like, these are the norms I have in mind. This is what respectful communication looks like. This is appropriate for me to threaten elevating it to a formal process, like making a formal complaint, given the fact that I've tried to reach out to you a number of times already. But the other person doesn't necessarily interpret our communication in the way that we intend. Ultimately, it's in the eye of the perceiver. So it's possible that Jake was very much misinterpreting the emails that I was sending, or even the words that I was using when I was on the phone with him. He might have thought, this is not such a big deal. I'm going to court next week over a number of different defects that are $100,000. I just don't have time to deal with this $7,000 thing. So he might view it as much more of a minor issue than me, whereas I think about it as very significant. He might also interpret me as being a bit of a jerk. Like, whereas I think, fair enough, I've paid for my driveway, shouldn't he come and fix it, right? He might think, well, I did a pretty good job. I didn't charge you much money. I gave you a bit of a discount on the normal rate. It's not my problem if the surface finish isn't reliable. We should go back to the manufacturer and talk to them about it. We installed it as per the specifications, so it's not my problem. But he might not even see it as his duty or responsibility to let me know that. He might just be dealing with other things, as I say. And then when he doesn't respond, or he does respond with a short, abrupt email, or he gives me a call or something, I don't accurately interpret his communication. I'm not accurately hearing and taking in the message that he's intending to send. I'm filtering it through all of my experiences up until this point, really, and all the other things that's going on in my life outside of my interactions with him. So if we can pause and think about workplace conflict, or, like I said, dealing with an angry customer at work or something similar, the situation is very much more complex than it seems at the surface level. Both people are being influenced by their contexts, their experiences until now, but also the other people that they're dealing with. And we're not getting this very true, nuanced perspective, especially when we think about something like email, right? So it's important first to just consider, what are you aiming for here? Like with Jake, this is something I didn't do in the moment back then, but I wish that I did. Just taken a couple of deep breaths and thought, well, we're in a bit of a dilemma here. I can keep following it up, but that's going to take time and cause me stress, which comes along with distraction from work or whatever else it might be. And what's my goal for him? I do probably I don't want to make him go bankrupt, if you know what I mean. Like, if that's what it meant, I probably would just pay for it myself. I do expect him to come and fix it, but I don't want to put him out as much as possible. Like, I don't want him to lose other potential work, etc. I try to think about his wife, his kids, all of these other people that might be connected to it. It's not just like I want to hurt him or I want to help him. You might inadvertently be hurting or helping the other people that are connected to him as well. And what about for me? We were in the middle of finishing our house. We hadn't had the landscaping done. We had big dirt piles out the front and the back of the house. There was a big hole out the back where we were thinking of putting a swimming pool in. There was no gardens or anything like that. I was really stressed at work. I was flat out dealing with a couple of really difficult workplace mediations at the time. And so I probably would have, in hindsight, benefited from limiting the amount of stress that I was dealing with, the amount of time and effort that I was spending. So it's why I put at the end of the case study that fixing it yourself would cost about $7,000. Well, there's an amount of work that you can lose because you're being distracted, and that can add up to $7,000 quicker than you might think. Like, even a few weeks for me of losing work, it probably in hindsight would have been better just to pay that, and then I could really optimize my time and attention and focus. In this particular case, I don't really have a relationship with Jake. I don't think after all of this, I'm probably going to use him again to do any work for me. He might not want to work for me anyway, regardless. But I don't think that there's an ongoing interdependence, if you know what I mean, with him. We don't rely on each other. It's not like we're working together in a team, in an organization, or we're dealing with my boss or something. Whereas if that was an ongoing relationship, I would benefit from thinking long-term as well as short-term. And then are there other people that are involved as well? Like my wife, for example. One of the things that really caused me so much stress was the feeling that we were spending so much money, like our mortgage was going up by so much to build this house. And I didn't want her to not feel good. I didn't want her to drive home and see the crappy driveway out the front of the house. It just made me feel sick in my stomach, to be honest. Like I hadn't given her what I should. Now, of course, if I could just pause and think about that, it wasn't realistic. My wife doesn't care about things like driveways as much as I do. So there's no possible way that she was coming home every day and thinking, Simon, can't you follow up about the driveway? But that was kind of the emotional turmoil that was playing out for me, often in subconscious levels. But if I pause and think about it, that was something that I was really worried about. And then maybe there's other people as well, like my son, Louis. He was just starting school at the time and a few other things going on. And I really wanted to be there for him and to support him as best that I can. And again, I might then have decided to limit the amount of stress or the amount of time that I spend dealing with this other sort of ancillary kind of issue. We could also apply the types of conflict tool. I talked about this in a live stream that I did yesterday, actually. This is a way of pulling apart what might be influencing the conflict. So we've got data conflict, interest, value, structure, and relationship. So I often suggest that maybe you would come across relationship conflict in the first instance. A lot of the time you feel like there's a bit of tension between you, Jake just not responding. Well, he might be pissed off by this stage. So that's the relationship conflict layer that's playing out. So when he comes, I could talk to him, do a bit of rapport building. How are you, mate? How you been traveling? Do you want a coffee before we get started? Hey, I'm pretty flexible around timing. Would you prefer to do it in the arvo? That kind of thing. Like I'm presenting a warm, flexible, collaborative kind of impression as much as possible. But that's not going to solve the problem if underneath it there's an issue with data. Like it is actually the manufacturer's job to solve this. It's not a warranty issue for him, and I'm not aware of that. He might benefit from letting me know that. Or we could deal with it as interest or value or structure. So it kind of gives us these different lanes that we can choose to deal with the conflict. Like I can fight him on the data. I can let him know that actually this is the requirements about warranties in Australia, or this is the information from the Department of Fair Trading's website. Like I can deal with him in the data. Or I might deal with him just in the interest. Like I might say to him, if you can come and have a look and get it fixed by the end of the week, I'd be happy to fix you up with a couple of cartons of beer or something. Like it's give and take. Or if you don't do the thing that I want you to do, come and have a look or fix it ultimately, then this is the negative consequence to you. I'm going to make this formal complaint kind of thing. That I think was what I chose to do when I sent the email that said, if you don't get back to me in a week, I'm going to contact the Department of Fair Trading. We could deal with it in value conflict. Like I could say to him, look, I know that one of the aspects of your business that's really important for you is your Aboriginal heritage. And I know that for you, part of that is going to mean that you want to make sure that you're looking after your customers as best that you can, because the word of mouth in small towns like this is really important for these kind of businesses. So I'm saying to him, are you sure this matches what you think you should do? Like, is it okay to have a customer that's upset and you just decide not to respond to them? Like, what's going on there? So we could fight him or deal with him at the value layer as well if we decide to. We could do it in a more combative kind of way or a less combative kind of way, I think. Or maybe we could deal with it as structure. Like instead of sending him 15 emails, maybe they've got a storefront, so I could go around in the afternoon and see if I can catch him, or go around in the morning. Or I might suggest that we meet on a Saturday morning if he's driving past where I live. So instead of him trying to fit it in amongst the busy weekdays that he's already probably flat out, maybe I can present some other options for dealing with me that's going to be a better fit for him. So giving him more time, sending an SMS instead of an email, instead of leaving a voicemail, probably SMS would be better as well for this kind of person. A different person dealing with it. I could have asked my wife to deal with it instead of me. Or maybe I know somebody who's really good at being assertive. Maybe they work in the construction sector, so I might ask them to give me some support. So we could think about all of those options around structure, value, interest, and data before circling back to the relationship layer. He's angry at me, an apology, those kind of elements that we might consider there. And then finally, I wanted to explain something called conflict modes. This was originally developed by a couple of psychologists, Thomas and Kilman, trying to identify the way that people respond to conflict. And what they ended up sort of coming to in their conclusions was that there were these 5 options that people tend to use when they're dealing with conflict generally. So this would be two countries who are in conflict, like Trump's dealing with, needing particular other sections of the globe at the moment for world security. He deals with that in a very competing kind of way. This is where we're very assertive. This is the way it needs to be. You need to do this, etc. For me, I tend to use the word directing, like you become the director. You need to do this. This is what's going to happen. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not willing to agree to that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be harsh or rude or aggressive or full on. Like you can still be very civil, be very respectful, but you're not flexible. You're saying this needs to change or this can't continue as is, etc. We could avoid the conflict altogether. That's the second option that we've got. Just suck it up. And in hindsight, probably that would have been a good option for me. Just don't worry about getting it fixed. Just get over it, mate. Like, honestly, there's going to be other damage that happens to your house or other wear and tear that goes on within a 12-month or 2-year kind of time frame. So just reminding myself that I'm not going to be so obsessed about the driveway as I am right now probably would have been a perfectly good option. I could have thought about compromising with him. This is where we meet in the middle. So I might say to him, look, mate, I think it would probably be best if we just get the whole driveway re-poured. I'd be happy to contribute to that. I'm wondering if, given the context, you might be able to give us a discount and we can meet in the middle in terms of price. So I might say to him, can you redo it? I'll pay something extra, but I'm not going to pay the full amount. When we compromise, it's good because we can get to a quick outcome. It might be something that he agrees to, as opposed to competing where he might just stick in that defensive stance. But compromise is challenging because nobody is 100% happy with the outcome. There's always some element that you could have got if you decided to be more assertive, or potentially even something that you could have given then if you decided to be more accommodating. So that's the fourth option that we've got, is to just deal with it ourselves. If someone's asking us to do something, we just say yes. In this particular case, we probably would have just hired a different concreter company to come in and just paid to get it fixed. So it's kind of like we'll come up with a solution, we'll do the work that's involved, we'll pay the price. And then the final option that we've got is collaborating. This is where we go through some type of a process, like meeting with them or talking with them on the phone or emails back and forth. And we try to get to a win-win solution that does actually work for everybody. So that's win-win. It sounds ideal, doesn't it? Like, why don't we always go down that collaborative path? Well, there are drawbacks and positives to all of these different options. If you take a competing kind of approach, it's good because you're not giving away something that's important to you and something that you shouldn't. But of course, the negative side of that is in the relationship. The people that you're dealing with might feel hard done by. They might want to get revenge at some stage, or they might not be as willing to help you out next time you need help, or whatever else it might be. Avoiding, well, it probably lowers the stress in the short term, but that's not going to lead to much in terms of longer term solutions for some conflict. But you might be surprised at how useful avoiding can be. You don't necessarily need to join in every conflict that you get invited to. We could accommodate, just pay for it ourselves. We could split the difference. Collaborating also has these pros and cons, though, is what I'm trying to say. The benefit is that we do get to a win-win solution, and often that's a robust plan that works for everybody. But it takes time, it's distracting, it takes effort, it takes thinking power. So there might be other things that you're dealing with at the moment that slip. So there might be a bit of an opportunity cost in that sense. And it also means that whilst this discussion is going on, while the emails are going back and forth, or when the meeting's coming up next week, in the meantime, things might get worse. Like, it's possible that Jake has got a time set up to me next week to talk, but one afternoon he's really stressed and he just decides to tell me to go jump, right? Or maybe there's another issue that comes up for him next week and he can't do both of them. He's only got a limited amount of time, so he ends up telling me that he's too busy. And that might mean that I then get very angry and upset because I need to wait another week for him. So when we're dealing with workplace conflict, collaborating can work, but in the meantime, we also need a bit of a holding pattern, a short-term containment plan so that things don't get worse while we're trying to come up with that more long-term kind of option. So what should I have done with Jake? Do you think that I probably should have just paid for it myself, the $7,000 out of pocket, but focus on other things? Should I have just let it go, not worry about fixing the surface? Should I have compromised, offer to pay him something, offer to help him in some way? But this give and take, this is what I can do for you if you can do this for me. We could look at the competing option, like this is the way it needs to be, go to fair trading, etc. That is the path that I ultimately took, and it didn't really get to a solution in that short term at least. Or we could collaborate. And that probably would have been a good path to go down. I could have said to him something like, look, I appreciate that you're probably flat out with the other work that you're doing. On our ends, we're still very disappointed with the finish, and it's not up to scratch in terms of the Australian standards. But I want to give you as much flexibility as we can in terms of coming to have a look at it. So I can meet you any day next week before about 10 o'clock. Just please let me know when suits and I can work around you. And then I probably would have messaged him the day before and just said, hey, mate, just double checking we're still okay for tomorrow morning. And if he's 5 minutes late or something like that, I probably would have just given him a call. Like there would be things that we can do in the meantime. And then if I can get him to come and meet me and talk about it, maybe we can come up with an option that works for both of us. Like I could say to him something like, well, tell me a bit about the manufacturer. How do warranties work with this kind of stuff? Are there any issues with the way that it's been poured or the way that it's been installed that you think might mean that the warranty was challenging to claim? How would that claim process work? What would that look like? What do I need to do? What information do I need to get from you? And that might have been a solution that we came up with, that the supplier of the product might have actually covered the cost to get it fixed. So I could have maybe talked through all those options and explored it, but it's very challenging, isn't it? One of the drawbacks, I think, of that collaborative approach is that there's not always a win-win that's possible. Like I'm saying, hopefully the manufacturer would have provided a warranty and there could have been someone else that paid for it, but maybe not. Maybe it was installed incorrectly and so it's his job ultimately to fix it, or the surface isn't something that's covered by warranty. It's considered everyday wear and tear and that's reasonable, or whatever else it might be. What would I do now? I think I would probably look at the compromise. I might say to him something like, look, we can get something else. We can get someone else to fix this section. Can you at least come and do this? Like, can you come and put some sealant on the top of it? And then we'll think about what to do about the wear and tear longer term. Like I probably could have got something from him in the short term, and that would have meant that I wasn't left just with nothing. As it was, I think now I could still probably pursue it, but there's been so much time that's elapsed, I wouldn't have much ground to stand on. And it's another thing to consider, isn't it? Timing. In the moment, maybe you've got options like collaborating, but they can evaporate pretty quickly if there's other conflict that's going on or other issues that are coming up as well. And we maybe could have tried to avoid it, but sometimes that has a limited time as well. Like we can avoid it for so long, but at some stage we need to get on the same page and make decisions together or whatever else it might be. I find this conflict modes tool just incredibly useful, especially when I'm dealing with workplace conflict and trying to explore options with the participants in mediation. Like I might say to them, if you were very assertive, if you took a firm stance here, what would that look like? What words would you use? How could you put that in a way that the other person's likely to be able to hear? What would a collaborative option look like? Is there some kind of a win-win that you think might work? Longer term, are there more comprehensive solutions that we can consider? What would a compromise look in the short term? It sounds like they're asking you to do this and this and this. Are there particular items in that list that you have issues with? Are there any of those requests that you might be willing to just say yes to, even if you're not willing to give them a blanket okay to all of them? We might explore options for avoiding. How is this affecting you? How does this relate to the other factors that you're dealing with in your work context, the other priorities that you've got on your plate at the moment? How does this weigh up in terms of the relative priorities? We could explore options for accommodating. What are you concerned about if you just say yes? They shouldn't be able to walk all over the top of me. They shouldn't be able to get away with it. Fair enough. So for you, you've got a real focus on justice. You don't want them to get away with it. You're worried about it creating a precedent or something similar. Is there a way that you might be able to agree to this, but still put boundaries or limits on that? So I'm really curiously exploring to them, what would these 5 options look like? And I'm surprised how frequently in mediation, 1 or 2 of them are very fruitful. Like we do all of a sudden have a couple of options that we can choose from. And that's very helpful when it comes to conflict because it helps us to feel more confident, first of all, not feel as overwhelmed, not feel as stuck, but also it gives us a path to follow, a plan that we can take, a next step. And that's often very reassuring when we're feeling stuck and overwhelmed, and especially when we're feeling like we've just been hitting our head against a brick wall. Sometimes it feels like there's just nothing that we can do that will work, doesn't it? So this conflict modes, I think, is very helpful as a framework for developing options. But what do you think? How have you found this kind of format today, using a case study and then going through a couple of different frameworks and theoretical tools? Are there particular kinds of conflict that you would like me to focus on in future videos? Have you had other conflict in your personal life? Or maybe there's recurring issues that go on for you at work? I'd love to hear from you. If you'd be willing to leave a comment down below, press like, all of that kind of stuff really helps tiny little channels like this. And if you would like more tools and resources for dealing with conflict resolution, please consider pressing subscribe. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day. I hope there's no unreliable tradies that are causing you stress, and hopefully see you again in a future episode of the Conflict Skills podcast or the Conflict Skills channels. Bye for now.